It's another week and it's another crystal confab. Welcome. This week we're diving into an amazing crystal from the far off lands of Russia. I'm with my crystal buddies, Kyle and Nicholas, and today we're exploring the crystal of Charoite, which, when you read many a book or many a website, you'll hear that the name comes from the Chara River, which is found next to. However, before we jumped on and hit the record button today, we're having a bit of a chat about that, and I'm going to hand over to Nicholas to explain where did the name come from? And is that exactly correct, Nicholas?
There is some debate over this. So, the nearest deposit to the Chara River is about 70 kilometers from said river, and it seems really unlikely the stone would get its name from a body of water that's that far away. That is not a big feature of its phenomenology in the landscape. There is a folk etymology that also exists that is unproven, but the word charavat, which means charming, enchanting, something along those lines in Russian, may be the source of the claim. Source of its name rather, because I mean, look at it. When you polish it and it's got all those swirling fibers, it's pretty darn enchanting to look at. But the simplest answer may be the truest, and the people who found it had no idea whether or not they were close to the Chata River.
Yeah, wow. And it's a really interesting one because there are a few crystals. Another violet crystal that I love is Sugi Light, which has only been found in a few locations around the world. This is the only location in Russia that is found worldwide. Am I correct?
There are a few spots in Russia where it comes from, not many. They are hundreds of kilometers apart from one another. And a while back, there was a since disqualified claim of a discovery in India. So I don't know the story of that. I just know that it's been struck from the records, but they leave the information about it being erroneously reported in databases.
And it's a really beautiful crystal. One other reading that I found is that it's actually the Russian government limits the amount that's mined each year to kind of make sure that the supply doesn't just all get extracted straight away. Have either of you heard anything about that before?
I hear similar claims applied to a lot of rocks from a lot of regions, and while I think it is probably sometimes true, I just don't have enough information about Charoite in particular. Part of the places that it comes from, it's also just hard to mine for about half the year when the ground is frozen over. So I think that probably has more to do than anything. There are some popular gem materials out there. For example, we recently chatted about Pressley Bluestone and the Stones of Avalon. Moneth Pressley, where it comes from, is in England designated as Site of Special Scientific Interest, an SSSI, and perhaps at least one of those locations in Russia from which Charoite can be obtained has a similar designation. I don't really know enough about their rules and regulations about mining and extraction to make an informed comment, though.
Mm. Now, it is one of these crystals, being a violet crystal. I think I've mentioned before that, we've got good old amethyst, but as our crystal appetites broaden, we always want to kind of go, well, what else is there? And this is a violet crystal that definitely came into my sphere and I've been working with for about 30 years. I absolutely love it. I think it kind of definitely has a strong spiritual power and influence in it and really can help us in a time where many of us are feeling a little bit lost and not sure where to go. So I believe, Nicholas, you find this a really great one for helping to give us a bit of life direction.
One of my most important allies in my early growth, we'll say, was an author who's since retired, and she considered charoite to be a stone of service. And I love the story of this stone's formation and how we can maybe translate that to getting some meaning from life. So, this is a rock that's formed in an unusual metamorphic environment. What we have is an intrusive rock called syenite. Syenite is a lot like granite, but with less silica content, far less quartz, usually a lot more feldspathoid minerals, which is going to include like our sodalite family rather than proper feldspars, which have more. silica in them, and it intrudes into a limestone-rich environment. And so the merging of these two very different, we'll say, sets of composition, sets of ingredients, gives us the unique chemistry required to produce something that occurs just about nowhere else on Earth. And in addition to that, it undergoes a sort of continuous process of metamorphosis that rends and breaks the fibers down, not entirely unlike what we see in petersite, which we've also talked about in the past. So, looking at the kind of unique mixture of things, we need just the right ingredients in just the right environment, and then just the right processes to continue afterwards. I feel like this stone speaks to us about getting leverage with what we've got available to us. And for me, it speaks to a kind of formula that another friend of mine from years ago used to talk about in terms of like what we should do in life. And for her, the formula for finding your purpose was, what is it that you can do that allows you to be of service to the world? How can you serve the greater good, your community? It doesn't matter whether it's a macro or a micro level. What can we do to serve? And then also, what brings us joy? And if you can find the overlap in those things, you can experience your life's purpose. And Charoite has this dreamy, ethereal, magical quality that helps us look for a world that is inherently enchantable. If we aren't looking for the magic in the everyday, we're going to see a lump of limestone until we crack it open and find this beautiful metasomatite inside that's rich in the violet purple fibers of charoite. And sometimes we have to dig through the debris and the kind of boredom of everyday life. Sometimes we have to cycle through things that aren't the right hat for us to wear for a lifetime, but they're enriching in as much they teach us what isn't right for us. And I know that earlier in my life, when I was going through a kind of a little love affair with Charoite, I was having difficulty figuring out what I was meant to do and where I was meant to be. I'd spent some time at uni studying music education, and I love making music. I am a musician still all these years later, with a pretty big hiatus in there. But the idea that my degree was going to uniquely qualify me to teach high school band for the rest of my life sucked the joy out of every room that I was in. I loved making music. I loved the idea of teaching, but that particular kind of teaching environment wasn't going to do it for me. And that left me in a really kind of tumultuous period. And so it was actually my boss's boss at the science museum I used to work at on campus who said, "You're too good to like waste this. Why aren't you studying science?" And I thought, oh, well, I almost did, just not this kind. I was going to do marine science or something along those lines. He said, "You're brilliant with the rocks. You do such a good job with the tours. The, upper end of the faculty love bringing benefactors to visit when you're here so you can be the docent because you just have this infectious enthusiasm for this work. Do you think maybe you should do something with rocks?" And I thought, oh, isn't that a novel idea? Why hadn't that ever occurred to me in my life? And so we started a process of declaring a new major that didn't really exist and doing independent study. And, life has this funny way of making sure that you see things through to completion when you're really meant to do it. I clearly was not meant to finish that academic track. Getting a degree in environmental science with an emphasis in geology and mineral studies wasn't going to also bring me the joy I was looking for. And so, to make a very complicated story just a tiny bit shorter, I eventually packed up most of my belongings, almost immigrated to Japan, came back 3 weeks afterwards and hit the ground running by joining corporate America. At that point in my life, I tried to make it as a speaker, a teacher. I was writing a book. I've never written that book. It doesn't, I mean, I have some notepads where bits of it still exist, but there is not a single paragraph of it that's ever been word processed. I needed more life experience. I needed more other things to pursue something that brought me joy. But part of what was missing was the service element. And doing the corporate America thing, working in luxury retail, in the tea industry, kind of straddling several different arenas at once, um, helped me hone the skills that I needed to do something more meaningful with my life. And when that environment wasn't working out for me, and I was trying to bring as much enchantment into it as I could, Charoite was just, again, this stone of enchantment, hence that word charovat in Russian, that spoke to me. And it was one of several I was working with when the little tap on my shoulder said, "Hey, do you want to do something with rocks?" And I said, "Absolutely." And here we are. I'm still doing something with rocks, but in a much bigger way, and I get to bring that to a much wider audience, hopefully to serve them. That is the goal through education, through writing, through showing up. My goal is to empower others. I really feel that without some of the blessings of Charoite, I might have found ways to serve. I might have found things that made me happy, but I wouldn't have found that sense of fulfillment and purpose until the two came together.
I love what you had to share there, and I think a lot of people could possibly learn that not just having Charoite around, but especially if you are a little bit younger, I can definitely relate to, my life story was my first, 15 years of my working career was corporate, working for big corporations, bank, fitness centers, travel agencies, and that type of thing. Then I also ran my own modeling academies and grooming deportment schools for a while as well. But nothing, crystals were just kind of my little thing. So they were all kind of circling around in their orbit. And it wasn't until me and my partner at the time, moved to New York and I couldn't work in America. I didn't have the right visa. So that was the first time when I got to say, what do I actually want to do with my life? And started writing a book actually on animals rather than crystals. But then 6 months later, my partner's like, I don't like America. Let's go live in Australia. Your country's better. So we did. And my first job was in a crystal shop. And then that's where I first started talking to people and the writing and all that kind of came on as well. So anyone who is feeling, maybe you're a little bit younger and you're like, oh, I'm not too sure where I'm going. Sometimes you do need to do your lap order to be able to give, I guess, a bit of life experience and stories. Maybe you have to get to your Saturn returns, and Charite might be a really great crystal for that. But yeah, anyone who's feeling a little bit lost of what am I meant to be doing with their life, I think this is an absolutely amazing crystal for helping with that. I've got a bit of shameless self promotion thrown in here. Got a iTunes meditation that you can do, which guides you through working with this crystal and asks you a few questions very similar to what Nicholas was sharing as well to help you kind of direct and work out what you might be passionate about. Because sometimes, as Nicholas was sharing, someone needs to throw a rock at you a few times before you actually realize, oh, this is what I'm meant to be doing, type of thing. What I also love about Chara, and I've got one of my favorite pieces that I've had for a long, long time. It's one of those pieces that you see it and you buy it and then you ask the price of it, type of thing. And I love this is a classic example, and you find this time and time again where Mother Nature seems to magically grow the right crystals together. So Charoite is this beautiful violet crystal that hopefully you've seen. But you'll see, and I'd encourage you, as long as you're not driving a car at the moment, go and grab your Charoite and have a bit of a look at it. And you may see some other colours in it beyond just the violet. So the two main other crystals that will grow within it is a crystal that's kind of golden, and you can see there's kind of a line through there on my one, known as Tinaksite, and then there'll be black pieces, and even one of my larger pieces has nice bits of black in it, and that's a crystal called Aegirine. Now, Charoite, as we've discussed so far, is a crystal that helps to launch you into the future with a bit of direction and clarity. But the thing that often stops us from recreating ourselves or doing something new is the past rears its ugly head and we fall back into old habits. And this is where Tinaksite and Aegirine are really, really powerful. So I do have a larger piece of Aegirine here. It does look very similar to black tourmaline, but it is very different. Aegirine is named after a Norse god of the oceans, Aegir. But why do I love this crystal and why do I love it in Charoite? Because this is my number one favorite crystal for cutting cords. This is a really great one for when you have any attachment to anything and you need to change your direction, start working with Aegirine. It grows in these kind of bands like this, so it's almost a bit like a blade or a sword as well. And it almost works with a part of the brain called the reticular activating system, or the RAS. Now, the reticular activating system is a part of the brain that is always looking for confirmation for what you believe. So let me give you an example of this. Let's say that you've never been to New York City and you're going there on a holiday. But from what you've seen and what you've heard that people there are pretty nasty and unfriendly. Guess what? Your brain will start looking for all the nasty and unfriendly incidences there to confirm what you already believe. However, if you've watched some movies and heard stories from other people that go, this is the greatest city on earth and everyone's lovely and expressive and everyone's an artist and it's so inspiring, guess what? Your brain will look for that confirmation as well. When we believe something and then we need to shift and go, well, hold on, maybe I need to take a different direction, we need to kind of reprogram that reticular activating system. And Aegirine is a really great one for kind of going, this belief, is it really serving me or is it just a thought? Is it a reality? And that you can create rituals, you can do healings for yourself and for maybe if you work with a client, we're actually using the Aegirine to see that cord, not necessarily to a person, you could use it definitely for a person, but more so for belief systems and kind of cutting that in that way. Just like the oceans ebb and flow, they come and go, they can be turbulent, they can be gentle, but they are fluid. Aegirine allows us to cut any rigidity to bring back that fluidity to us. Astrologically, if you lack a bit of water in your birth chart, so you don't have any planets in Cancer, Scorpio, or Pisces, Aegirine may be a really good one to stop you being a bit too rigid, a bit too, you've got a lot of earth, a bit too stubborn, if you've got a bit too much air, a bit too much in your head and I know it all, or a bit too much fire where you kind of like just dominate everyone and don't take in and receive, be receptive as well. So really beautiful in that way. Tinaksite, this beautiful golden crystal. It is a hard one to find by itself, but it is quite stunning when you do. It's got that reflective kind of sheen to it as well. Any crystal that has a bit of a reflective sheen can work as a really powerful protective crystal. And so I find Tinaksite is a really beautiful one for helping to deflect things that are going to stop you from, for want of a better term, stop you from fulfilling your destiny and creating your legacy. So this is what I love in this crystal. Yes, find yourself a beautiful violet piece of charoite because it will really help you to work out what you need to do. But if you've got a piece with some of the black in it, with the Aegirine and some of the golden Tinaksite, this is a stunning way of really making sure that you are letting go of the past and the past has no hold on you so that your head can only go in one direction, and that is forward. One playful exercise I love to get people to do when I'm teaching is I ask them to try and look forwards and backwards at the same time. And apart from getting whiplash, it's impossible. So charoite with its Tinaksite and its charoite really helps to direct your head forward, sheds the past, cuts off those attachments, and gets you going in the right direction where you're meant to be going. And remember that sometimes the path isn't always directly where you're meant to be today. Sometimes you've got to go around about, you've got to move to North America, you've got to go to Japan, like me and Nicholas have, to actually find your place where you're meant to be and what you're meant to be doing. So trust the journey, but charoite will definitely help you with that. What about yourself, Kyle? Me and Nicholas have been hogging the spotlight today. How do you love to work with this crystal?
Well, I'm not going to be adding anything new by saying I came through a life change, and Charoite definitely came to me in a very similar manner. I've still got my original two little pieces that I got at the very start of my journey, both this one showing off the Aegirine, this one showing off the Tinaksite really beautifully. I was a barista, I managed cafes, I was a hospo person as opposed to a corporate person. But I think whenever you're in a machine, you learned about people. Like it's all about learning about people and how to interact with people and meeting the right type of people and blah, blah, blah. For me in hospitality, I think I've spoken about this before, I sort of dealt with the richest of rich to homeless people and everyone in between, just because of where our cafe was situated, where I ended up working most of my cafe working life. And it was becoming fed up with it. And my mother going, come and work in my crystal shop, get a gemology degree, see what happens. okay, let's do a big life change. Let's do the Saturn return thing. Let's like jump into it full pelt, handed in my resignation, left that and dove in and kind of literally had to throw myself in fully. And I remember immediately being drawn to a Charoite going, why are you so pretty? Like, why are you so pretty? And I am a go, go kind of person. I'm always like on my feet, always active. I don't stop very well. I don't slow down very well. And Charoite is one of the first crystals that really forced me to like stop and look at it and slow down. And these little pieces sort of guided me through. And it was, I've spoken about this as well. When I went to the Natural History Museum in London in 2014, they had this huge panel, this like doorway. I still think of it as a doorway that kind of opened up for me and kind of revealed a little bit of myself to me when I was standing in front of it. It was this like, there is more to this, but you have to trust that you can't see everything in front of you. You have to be able to just follow the path that's being put in front of you. And I really went through this kind of battle, I would say. You know, I know everything, I can do it, I'm in control here, to having absolutely no control, not knowing, and just having to learn and absorb and sort of start from, it felt like starting from the very base level, ground up again. And that was perfect. Like, it was actually what I needed, because I needed that reset. I needed that shift because I was already in service, but it wasn't the right kind of service. I needed to learn what I needed to learn so I could translate that service to other people. When I used to make coffee, like, you provide what they need in the moment, send them on their way. With crystal advice, with readings, I get to provide what I need in the moment, send people on their way. And as I've gone through this studying spirituality, studying the esoteric arts, studying myself and crystals, and allowing all of that to develop, because before this, I didn't know I was psychic. I didn't know I was a medium. I didn't know I was intuitive. I didn't know I could hear crystals talk to me. I didn't know any of this was latent within. I had this idea that I was going to be managing cafes and blah, blah, blah. This forced reset allowed me to kind of explore in a new way how I could provide to people. And I'm still exploring that, I think. I think I'm still learning about that. And the big reset really came during the big reset 2020. And I was kind of at a loss, like really, really at a loss. And this is when some big pieces really came to me. This is my old mobile phone of Charoite that I love, because it's literally got like the little antenna, and I can hold it up to my ear and like force myself to stop and listen. There's even a video deep back somewhere in social media of me literally doing that, being an idiot. But it's like, because it's cold, like it's cold, I have to like stop and adjust to it. And it forces me to kind of listen to myself, listen to the universe, listen to what's happening. And it was one of those really wonderful pieces that kind of opened up. And then talk about having to trust. I'm not showing off or anything, but this chap came to me during lockdown times in 2020, 2021. And it was like, can I afford this? Should I buy this? Yes. No. Yeah. Yes. No. Yes. Just do it. Like that, like trusting, shelling out a little bit of money when the world is locked down was a big, big thing. But it has everything in it. Absolutely everything that is Charoite is sort of within there, with the Tinaksite, with the Aegirine. It's this huge settling into, you are meant to be providing to people. Just do what is in front of you. What do you have at hand? I have cards, I have crystals, I have myself. And so I started doing weekly readings. Many of you have found me through my weekly readings that I do. And I get that great confirmation from providing something small but large. It is consistent. It is changing and evolving. It provides me a place to put my energy of service, of wanting to provide something, because every week it's like, I know how much we are struggling. Like, it started from a place of everyone stuck at home, we need a little bit of guidance, and it's evolved into this thing of like, the world's evolving. How are we meant to navigate this world that's evolving? And this is where I think Charoite is exceptional and allowing us to follow what our soul is meant to do when the world is like crumbling around us, where there is no real path, because it's all new, it's all different, it's all changing constantly. We're trying to find footing on unstable ground, right? So it's about allowing ourselves to be in a ship navigating, allowing ourselves to kind of follow that path as opposed to a destination or needing a fixed thing, a fixed point, if that makes sense. Like, it's more about the journey of where it's taking you. And as you go along, you realize things, you become aware of things, you are shown revelations that kind of blow your mind, and you go, ah, that's why I went through that, that's why I did that, that's why I'm now here. It all makes sense, right? It all falls into place kind of without you trying, whereas in the past you like forced things and you really tried to make things happen. And its beauty for me is really allowing things to just fall into place for your soul. When logic is always trying to be in control, we put it to the back. We go, what do I need? What do I require? Like, what am I craving? What have I got to offer? As Nicholas said, that sort of crossover and overlap between what you're good at and what you're passionate about, like bringing that together allows you to provide a service, whether it be through something like what we are doing here, or whether it be through like being a great parent to children, being a great person to your colleagues at work, being that person that always turns up for all of those friends that are going through it, right? We provide service in very different ways, and it doesn't have to be for money, and it doesn't have to be in front of a camera, and it doesn't have to be like this. This is a really important thing to navigate as well, is we can be of service in so many different, quiet, amazing ways. And I think that is really, really important as well.
I love that. I love that. One point that we've brought up that I thought we should clarify a little bit is Saturn returns. We've used that term, but exactly what that is. So as we know, all the planets are doing their little dance or their rotation around the sun, and it takes each planet, depending on how close it is to the sun, how different times. We know that Earth takes 365 days. So Saturn, being a lot further out, takes about 29 and a half years to do a full cycle of the sun to return back to its original place. So basically all of us have Saturn where it was when we were born, and at the age of around 29 and a half, Saturn is back where it originally began. So Saturn is about discipline. It's known in traditional astrology as being very much about restriction and downsizing, whereas I like to think of it more as discipline. And discipline can be, can sound like, oh, I've been naughty and I need to, be apprehended, but it's more about realigning. And I always think of, when I talk about Saturn, that Saturn's very much like why we make children eat their vegetables. Do we force them to eat their vegetables because we hate them? No, we do it out of an act of love. Same reason we make them go to bed early and so on. And so Saturn is, and is known as, kind of like the father planet, our inner parent. And we awaken our inner parent when we work with Saturn. So what tends to happen around Saturn retrograde is you start to realize that you can't just coast along relying on your innocence, youthful charm and beauty, and that you're actually going to need to do something with your life. At 29 and a half or around 30, I thought I'd be married, I'd have a career, and I'd have a house, and I'd kind of be on the way to that white picket fence with 2.4 children type of thing. And I didn't have any of those types of things. So there's this rude awakening that many people go through. It is a wave. You don't just wake up one day. But what I guess we're kind of proposing is, although you could definitely work with Charoite at any time, it would be great at this age. It also reoccurs at 58 and around, hold on, let me do my maths, around 87 if you're around at that time as well. So this could be a really great time anytime you're questioning what to do with it. Now, Nicholas, I love to use you as my fact checker because there's a lot of information and a lot of misinformation out on the internet and so on. But I also have read that Charoite is discovered where there was once a concentration camp, and thus Charoite also helps us because crystals can embody the energy of what's on a land. That this crystal can be a really great one for resilience when we are getting tested on our path as well. And am I right? Am I wrong? Fact check me, Nicholas.
I've never heard this claim before, so
Ah,
I got nothing for you.
oh, Kyle, have you heard that one either? No. Oh, you're on mute. That's all right.
Never in my life have I heard that one. Sorry, I can't add to it. But I definitely feel it adds a level of like inner strength through challenge.
Yeah, this crystal, I think, it definitely, although it's all kind of glitzy and glamoury, it does kind of really bring that strength as well. One thing I really like us to talk about is, okay, we've got the crystal, we know what it's for. Now, what do we do with it? This, for me, isn't necessarily one that I kind of have many practical activities with. I think it's just a one to where maybe on a long-term basis, especially any period where you are questioning what you should be doing with your life. I sometimes like it around the Chiron retrograde. It can be really helpful that time. And meditation, all those types of questions. What am I meant to be doing? What brings me joy? Where do I lose sense of time? Who in the world would I most like to help? What would I like to be remembered for? Contemplating with those questions, kind of in an active journaling, diarising, meditation, pondering kind of activity. But it's not so much one I'd like grid around the house or necessarily or use it in any way like that. Kyle, is there any other way? I know you love your grids. Is there grids that you like to make with Charoite, or how do you like to use it apart from using it as a phone to call your spirit?
I actually really love pairing Charoite with citrine and making a grid with that in helping to clarify what I'm trying to like bring into reality from the spiritual realm or from like what I'm hearing from spirit or the universe. Like when it's a little less clear, I love pairing them together, bringing them together with an added energy of something like onyx or smoky quartz, just a little bit more grounding, just to ground it in, especially if the Charoite doesn't have the Aegirine within it. And I love to sit with that. And I've done that many, many times. I actually have all of my Charoite in a grid together with Brandbergs. And Brandbergs for me have such a powerful energy of like all encompassing spiritual groundedness and wholeness and support. Anything that blends amethyst smoky with inclusions, like it is going to sort of give this roundedness. And I find when they're together, they just give this wholeness and this settledness. And they're on a level behind me where I have to stand with them. And so I have to stand on the level, bring myself down, reconnect, because as I said, I go and I'm busy and I'm doing a lot. And I've recently added blue topaz to that grid. So that's my most recent addition. And I love how clarifying blue topaz is. I love how, again, it forces the breath, but it brings that direction. So I love that pairing with it. And for me, like, try and embrace the idea of side quests. Like being in a video game, getting from point A to B, getting to the end is great. But like when you get to learn all of the stuff in between, you then get to the next level and you can do even more, right? So sometimes, again, it's not linear. It's about like discovering the rest of what's around you now so that you can go forward with even more information and even more like on your backpack.
Love it. Nicholas, any way that you like to actually practically use Charoite?
I think this is a really wonderful stone to do some dream work with. So whether you are one of those people who's really good at lucid dreaming, or you just have a really rich or want a richer Dreamtime journey experience, this can be such a lovely stone. If you'd like to use it specifically to help you kind of sort out some life direction problems, sit with it ahead of time. You can talk to it like you would any sentient being and have a conversation. You can visualize your dilemma. You could also do a bit of journaling before bed. I find that that's a really good way to kind of organize what your Dreamtime journey will be oriented towards. And then pop it under the pillow or, touch it in your hand as you fall asleep at night. And the moment you wake up, just start writing your dreams down. Don't worry about what they mean. Just put it on paper before it's gone. And then come back to that while holding your Charoite so you can evoke the imagery and sort through it during normal waking consciousness. And you might find some particularly helpful images show up in your dreams that way.
One thing, if people do find that they don't dream too much or they want to enhance it as well, is one of my hobbies is to play with applying different essential oils to the soles of your feet at night to increase your dreaming. The reason we apply it to the soles of our feet is we kind of get the sustained release throughout the night. So my kind of top list, as it stands at the moment, my top 5 would be gardenia, blue lotus, juniper berry, clove, and a rare melaleuca from Australia called nerolina. These are really, really great. Some people do find marjoram, budwood, and vetiver can also help as well. The only thing is you need to make sure that you're getting a real essential oil, not just a cheap, nasty one. You know, gardenia and blue lotus, if you're buying it for, a few dollars at a shop, that's going to be chemically made and you're just poisoning yourself as you sleep. But if you are one of those people that go, oh, I'd love to do what Nicholas said, but I can't remember any of my dreams or I don't dream much, there are some great books and information on lucid dreaming. But I've also found those essential oils, mix it with the carrier oil or a little bit of, moisturizing cream, which is great for the feet as well. Rub it into your soles of your feet, about 3 drops. Rub it into the soles of your feet at night. And yeah, let us know in the comments exactly how you find that as well. It could be, a really nice way to enhance that dream with a bit of Charoite. So our mission today was easy. We wanted to tell you what the meaning of life was for you. And we're not too sure if we've done that. But remember, just like the fibrous twists and turns that you find in the Charoite, you're going in the right direction, even if it's not clear right now. But one thing I can promise you, we will be back next week with another episode when we dive into a much-loved crystal. Until then, take care and blessed be.